True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease has sharpened my senses, not destroyed them, not dulled them. Above all, the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how the idea first entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so by degrees, very gradually, I made my mind up to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Now this is the point. You may fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kind to the old man the week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I'd turn the latch of his door and open it, oh so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I first put in a dark lantern, all closed so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see the old man as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern, cautiously, oh so cautiously. I undid it just so that a single ray of light fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights, every night just at midnight, but I found the eye always closed, so it was impossible to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into his chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see he had been a profound old man, indeed, to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while I slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and the old man had not even dreamed of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps the old man heard me, for he moved in bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no, his room was pitch black, with thick darkness, and so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it steadily, steadily. I got my head in, and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang to bed and said, "Who's there?" I kept still quiet, and said nothing. For another hour, I did not move a muscle. And in the meantime, I did not hear the old man lie down. He was still sitting up in bed, listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the hall. When I waited for a long time, very patiently, without hearing the old man lie down, I resolved to open a little, a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once, but only once. In an instant I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then sat upon the bed and smiled gaily. But for many minutes, the heartbeat was beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. Everybody was kung fu fighting. It would not be heard but through the walls. At length it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there for many minutes. There was no pulsation. The old man was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will no longer think so when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night wandered and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut it off the head and the arms and the legs. Took out 3 planks of the flooring of the chamber and deposited between them all the scantlings. I then replaced the board so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart. But what had I to fear now? There entered 3 men, who introduced themselves as officers of police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. I smiled, for what had I to fear? The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. I took my visitors over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them I was singularly at ease. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears. No doubt I now grew very pale, but I talked more fluently, with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles, in a high-key voice with violent gesticulations. But the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? It grew louder, louder, and still the men chattered pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, they heard. They suspected, they knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything better than agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypothetical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark, louder, louder, louder. Villains, I shrieked, dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, it is the beating of his hideous heart.